Welcome to the line change. Sorry, I was just trying to get Instagram sorted, but um, Canucks win, big win for the Vancouver Canucks. We're gonna break it all down here on the line change. So let's get right into it. Welcome to the line. Welcome back. Um, Here we go for our, I guess, not our first official live stream. The last one, there were some technical issues. This is our first, I guess, official live stream. But welcome to the live stream. We're going to break down this game. Let me just get up my notes. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. We'll talk a little bit more after in regards to some Canuck news from earlier today. But starting off, first period, P.S. Suter scores his 21st of the season at 10 minutes and 9 seconds, assisted by Marcus Pettersson. Suter continues to have a great season. I mean, I'm starting to really think the Canucks need to re-sign him in the offseason. I know there was talks about maybe trading him at the deadline, and also there's, talks about Brock Besser. But I think Suter, you need to re-sign, because if you re-sign Suter, that's one less center the Canucks have to go out and look for and replace. And just the fact that he's had a career year this year, you got to keep a guy like this. That Canucks first power play, absolutely dreadful. They were having a really difficult time getting into the zone. The Devils were actually doing a really good job of stick checking and preventing them from getting into the zone. You could even see a little bit of frustration on Quinn Hughes. They had one shot on the power play. It was a great chance for Garland, set up by Hughes. Markstrom ended up making the save. Not a whole lot going on in the first period. The final shots in the first period were 7-5 in favor of the Devils. Moving on to the second period, Canucks took a too many men penalty, bench minor. Unfortunate there. Canucks were able to successfully kill off the penalty. So that's, again, great to see. We keep talking about how it's been a bright spot for the Canucks in the last month. They actually even said on the broadcast that Canucks' penalty kill is first in the league. And then the Canucks took another penalty, Bluger 2 minutes for tripping. And unfortunately, New Jersey will capitalize on this power play. Meyer scores his 21st on the power play at 10 minutes and 24 seconds, assisted by Mercer and Bratt. Demko's really going to want that one back, as it ended up going 5-hole on him. So it was a bit of a weak goal, at least in my opinion. I thought Demko should have had it there, but it squeaked past him, and the game is all knotted up at 1. Also, a funny little situation occurred as the puck ended up getting lost in Demko's equipment, and he was, trying to lift up his jersey and trying to get the puck out. It looked like it was maybe in either his jersey or his pants, but then you saw the puck drop out. I thought that was a little funny. Add a little bit of humor to the game. Him, struggling to get the puck out of his equipment. The Devils were spending a lot of time in the Canucks zone in the second period, I noticed. And then Quinn Hughes was continuing to absolutely dazzle and trying to drive the offense. He was, zipping around, trying to get, pucks on net. So Quinn Hughes, absolutely phenomenal once again in this game. And keep in mind, this is all from him not even being 100%. Like, wow. Myers rang one off the crossbar. They thought it may have been a goal as the goal light went off, but it was ruled a no goal. So a tough break for the Canucks there. There was a little bit of rough stuff at the end of the period between Sherwood and Dillon. Sherwood ended up drawing a penalty at the end of the second period there. I believe, at least I think, I could be wrong there. Let me know in the comment section down below if that was actually the case. So far through two periods, very low shooting game, as there were only 23 shots for both teams through two periods. So neither team were getting a whole lot of shots on goal, a lot of misses. The final shots in the second period were 6-5 in favor of Vancouver. Shots after 40 minutes were 12-11 in favor of the Devils. Moving on to the third period, Canucks ended up going on the power play. They managed to get one shot on the power play, so the Canucks ended up going 0 for 2. Once again, the power play is just not able to get it done. Perhaps that has a lot to do with, the Canucks missing Elias Pettersson and Niels Höglander, and them having a completely different first unit. Having guys like Lekaramäki on the first unit, unable to really get anything going. Pius Suter had a great chance, but was robbed by Markstrom. Canucks with some pressure in this third period. Meyer scores his 22nd of the season at 11 minutes and 2 seconds, assisted by Dillon and Hischier. This was a really unlucky bounce. The shot ended up, it was a beautiful pass from Hischier, and, shot missed the net and then bounced right off the boards onto the stick of Meyer, who just tapped it in. And Demko was, overcommitted to the shot, and Meyer ended up having a wide open net to, put the puck in. So unlucky there for the Canucks. And then Lekaramäki scores his third of the season at 11 minutes and 47 seconds, assisted by Forbort and Amon. Haula scores his 9th of the season at 13 minutes and 25 seconds, assisted by Dumoulin. 3 goals in a 5-minute span in this game. Like, talk about, firing up this game, considering it had been pretty low key. Coincidental minors for Forbort and Kovacevic, 2 each for fighting. Kovacevic was spending a lot of time in the penalty box, and he had all 3 of the Devils' penalties. And I actually watched that video of Sheldon Keefe ripping into Kovacevic, after some comments that Kovacevic had made in regards to the team, and how Keefe basically bluntly said he needs to be better. And then he goes and gets 3 penalties in this game, has like 6 minutes in penalties. So not really a good look for Kovacevic. Suter scores his 22nd of the season at 19 minutes and 24 seconds, assisted by DeBrusk and Hughes. This goal was huge for the Canucks. Huge, as it tied the game up. Obviously, we weren't sure who scored. At one point, the broadcasters were saying, the goal belongs to Garland. Oh, the goal belongs to DeBrusk. And then it ended up going to Suter, who was actually tangled up with Markstrom. His leg was actually in between his pads, and he couldn't really move. But at the end of the day, Canucks tie this one up with the goalie pulled. So they come up big once again on 6-on-5. Once again, Canucks showing some resilience near the end of this third period, knowing that they really need to get points. They need to get wins. Canucks are able to get a point, much needed, considering going into this game, they were 5 points behind St. Louis. Canucks end up out-shooting the Devils in the third period by a shot total of 12-9. Final shots after 60 minutes were 23-21 in favor of Vancouver. Moving on to overtime, as this is actually the last time we did a live stream, I had to delay the live stream because we went to a shootout. So little odd that's happening. Back to back, times I decided to do live streams. Both times we go to a shootout. So yeah, overtime, Quinn Hughes had a breakaway that was stopped by Markstrom. Quinn basically, cutting through the middle and going all the way up for a breakaway, stopped by Markstrom with the blocker. Brock Besser with a great chance. Demko with a absolutely unbelievable save, absolutely robbing Cotter, doing the full splits, which is a little scary considering Demko's just coming back from a groin injury, and he goes ahead and makes this absolutely highlight reel save on Cotter. Very well may have saved the game for the Canucks there with that big save. Canucks with a lot of possession in overtime. This was obviously a much better overtime performance than the one against St. Louis, which resulted in the Canucks losing, after coming back and tying it up. Obviously there was that bad line change from DeBrusk, and then Pettersson bobbling the puck. There was none of that tonight. And then at the very end of overtime, Lekaramaki had a great chance, but unfortunately shot it wide, and that would bring overtime to an end. Final shots in overtime were 4-3 in favor of the Devils. Final shots in the game were 27-25. And then moving on to the shootout. Cotter was stopped. DeBrusk scored. Nice little move by DeBrusk going top shelf on Jacob Markstrom. Bratt scores, and wow, the hands on Jesper Bratt. Like, holy crap. How he was able to dangle that and then backhand it above, I believe it was Demko's right pad. So great goal there from Bratt. Garland was stopped. Meyer was stopped. He actually kind of fumbled the puck a little bit. Suter was stopped. Luke Hughes was stopped. And then Jonathan Lekaramaki scores. What a goal. And that's going to do it for this game. Canucks end up winning in a shootout. Some post-game notes. Canucks were 57% in the faceoff circle. So Canucks haven't been doing all that great in the faceoff circle. Faceoff circle the last few games. Obviously missing Pettersson is key, as Pettersson is probably one of your best faceoff guys, even though he himself has been struggling in the faceoff circle. Canucks end with 22 hits, 17 blocks tonight for the Canucks. As we mentioned earlier, Canucks showing great resiliency near the end of the game to tie it up. Pia Suter really stepped up big here tonight, as expected, with him filling in the Canucks' first line center role due to Pettersson and Hedl both being out with injuries. Their top two centers. Quinn Hughes, ice time of 31 minutes and 38 seconds. So once again, Quinn Hughes is at over 30 minutes of ice time. He's Superman at this point, I would say. All that he's doing, he had over 11 minutes alone in the third period. Like, wow, like Quinn Hughes is incredible. Like, we really need to make sure we keep this guy, for the rest of his career, because I don't know what this team would be without a guy like Quinn Hughes. Kiefer Sherwood with 5 hits tonight. So as of tonight, he's over 400 hits. So that little challenge that we laid out, he's already surpassed it. He's at 401 hits on the season. I definitely do think he can hit that 460 mark by the end of the season. Yes, he usually averages about 6 hits per game. He finishes with 5 tonight. This game was a must-win for the Canucks. I know we've been saying that a lot for almost every single game, but it's true. Every game matters, but this one definitely more than the others due to their losses on the weekend, both to the Rangers and the Blues. The Canucks are now only 3 back of St. Louis with a couple games in hand. They're now tied with Calgary in points in the standings. We're going to have a standings video posted on Wednesday. I'm thinking about doing like standalone standings videos, like updates on Saturdays and Wednesdays. So we're going to be doing that going forward. The next game for the Canucks is Wednesday against the Islanders in New York. Obviously, actually, hang on. Before we get into the Pettersson and Höglander stuff, I just want to mention Demko played really well in his return, made some pretty big saves in overtime in particular, and definitely that save in overtime on Cotter was a big one, as we mentioned. Definitely, I would say, Rick Tocchet talks a lot about moments. That was a moment right there by Thatcher Demko. Great save by Demko, and it's great to have him back, obviously. Moving on to our player of the game, I ended up going with Pio Suter. 2 goals. He was a +2, and he had a nice time of 23 minutes and 2 seconds. So, yeah, our line change player of the game for tonight is Pio Suter. And, but let's talk more about the news that we got this morning. The unfortunate news. Well, we got good news and we got bad news, technically, this morning. The good news, Thatcher Demko was coming back and he was starting tonight. Then the bad news was Elias Pettersson and Niels Höglander were out and we're not playing tonight. As a matter of fact, they flew back to Vancouver as they will not play for the remainder of this road trip. Technically, the Canucks have, I believe, 3 more games on this road trip, and that basically means Pettersson and Höglander won't be on the trip at all. So they're going to miss at least the next 4 games on this road trip, and that just really sucks. Really bad timing for these injuries to happen. We still don't know what the exact injuries are for either of them. With Pettersson, it looks like he seemed to have injured himself on a face-off. So maybe it's his core or his ribs. And, he could have pulled a muscle or something or done something to a muscle in his midsection. So who knows what the injury is. They haven't really said anything about Höglander's injury, as that's still up in the air. But hopefully these injuries aren't long-term. Hopefully they're not long-term. And then, hopefully it's just the 4 games. I haven't heard anything in regards to when the Canucks come back home, if Pettersson and Höglander will be good to go. But like I said, this is just really terrible timing on the injuries. Pettersson was finally starting to turn things around for himself. And then he has this injury. Höglander himself has been playing absolutely great. I would even go as far as saying he's been our best forward since the 4 Nations break. He was really starting to heat up after struggling earlier on in the season. And yeah, I just can't keep saying enough that this is just bad timing for the Canucks. I will admit, when I heard this news, I did tweet earlier. And I'll admit, I had some doubts when it came to the Canucks' playoff chances. After hearing that Pettersson and Höglander were out and would not be on the remainder of this road trip, I lost a little bit of hope, just a little bit. And I did tweet out basically talking about the lack of moves at the deadline and knowing that, you already had a gaping hole in your second line center with the trade of JT. And then obviously you got Hedl, who was a, de facto second line center, even though he's technically, I would say, a third line center. And then he gets hurt. So you lose your de facto second line center, and now you don't have one at all. And then you lose your number 1 center in Petey, who's now injured. So right now you've lost both your 1C and your 2C. So you have neither of those. You have Pia Suter as your 1C right now. I mean, granted, he played great tonight. He got a couple goals, so I'm not going to harp too much on Suter, but Suter's not a first-line center. I think at best he's maybe a second-line center, and that's, being nice about it, I guess. But and then it just makes this management group look really bad. The fact that they did not do anything at the deadline. You couldn't have at least gotten something. Like, I know they traded Susie to the Rangers for a draft pick. You mean to tell me you couldn't have gotten, maybe flipped that draft pick and gotten at least, it doesn't necessarily have to be a second line center, at least another body, in case an injury happens that you can plug in. I know they called up Ratu, and I know they had Carlson up as well in this game. Ratu, I didn't really notice all too much, but I know people have been clamoring for them to call up Ratu for a while now, as he's been playing really well in Abbotsford. But it just makes this management group's decision to stand pat at the deadline look even worse, considering these recent injuries. I know they went out and said, we're going to address the, second line center position in the off season. Well, you're trying to get into the playoffs. That's not going to help you get into the playoffs when you do it in the off season. I know, going back to the whole JT Miller trade, we haven't really touched too much on this on the channel, at least, discussed it. After seeing these injuries, I know a lot of people will say, it had to happen. JT had to go. Him and PD could not coexist. He needed, a change of scenery. He needed a fresh start. And I get that. But Miller was your second line or first line center. And then you got Hedel in return, but it seems like the Canucks didn't really think, by trading away JT Miller, it's not going to be easy to fill that hole that is going to be left there when, you trade him. So it makes it, I'll admit, I've been thinking, at least the last week or so, should the Canucks have maybe waited to trade JT at the deadline instead of doing it when they did? Now, yes, that whole bunch of other things, result in that. If the Canucks had done that, they wouldn't have had Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor. They wouldn't have gotten Hedel when they did. Would let this be a question for you guys, and let me know in the comments. Do you guys think the Canucks should have waited until the deadline to make the JT Miller trade? Like make the same trade, just wait until the deadline. Do you guys think that would be, and then maybe, they wouldn't have suffered without a, bona fide second line center for as long as they have. At least, give Canucks a little bit of a window before you trade JT. I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys at all, but I do think, if they had done that deal at the deadline, maybe they'd be in a better spot. I don't know. I know Miller wasn't producing really prior to the trade, and obviously neither was PD. And who knows, maybe if this trade happens at the deadline instead of, at the end of January, PD isn't playing like he is now. Who knows? There's a lot of what ifs with this, but it's an idea that popped into my head. It got me thinking, what if the Canucks had made this trade at the deadline instead of, at the end of January? Would they have suffered through not having a second line center for as long as they have now? Or do you guys think if they had waited until the offseason before making that same JT Miller trade, tried to tough it out, with JT. And then I don't know if I'm just grasping at straws or not, but it makes me wonder, as the Canucks are really in a tight spot right now. They're barely holding on to, trying to get into the playoffs. And now with these injuries to both Pedersen and Höglander on top of Heedle's injury, Canucks are really in a bad spot. Obviously, they're going to have to go on some miracle run in order to just make it into the playoffs at this point. And everyone knows St. Louis is on fire. St. Louis has been on fire since the Four Nations. And I don't know if anyone's really going to stop them right now. Obviously, we mentioned earlier that Canucks are only 3 points behind St. Louis now. But, you still got Utah, in that race. Maybe, heaven forbid, Anaheim a little bit. I don't have the standings up in front of me right now, but I know Anaheim wasn't too far behind Utah. But I'm starting to think, as day by day as the days go by, I'm starting to think it's gonna end up being between the Canucks and the Blues at this point. I haven't really paid too much attention to Calgary. I know Calgary's still technically in it, but I really do think it's going to come down to, at the very least, Canucks and St. Louis. If not, Calgary, Vancouver, and St. Louis. It's going to be one of those three teams is going to get that second wild card spot. I do now. Obviously, we don't play the Flames again this season, but we do have the Islanders on Wednesday. I know we also face. Trying to remember the schedule. Here, let me quickly look at it on my phone. Sorry. Yeah, so the Canucks have the Islanders on Wednesday, Columbus on Friday. The road trip ends Sunday against the Jets, and then Canucks play the Kraken. That's when they're back at home. So they're back at home on the 2nd. So we'll see if hopefully Pedersen and Höglander are good to go by then. Then the Canucks play the Ducks at home, and then the Golden Knights at home, the Stars, Avalanche, Wild, Sharks, and then Golden Knights. So that's the remainder of the Canucks schedule. Obviously, the games against the Golden Knights are probably going to be tough. Vegas has been at the top of the division all season long. And then you got, Seattle. Canucks have kind of fumbled with Seattle a few times this year. I know they have, I believe, a win against them. Obviously, the Jets. I know the Canucks beat the Jets recently, in that, shellacking. They basically, surprised the Jets and whooped them. But, I don't think that's going to happen again. I think that was a rare off night for Connor Hellebuyck and the Jets. I think they just kind of surprised them, and the Jets just weren't prepared for that, which is a rare occurrence. The Ducks, that should be a team that the Canucks should beat. Although last time the Canucks played the Ducks, they lost 5-2. Stars, Dallas has obviously been great all season. They're going to be extremely tough to beat. Colorado. Canucks have actually fared pretty well against Colorado this season. Last game, they shut them out. So, but there's only so many times that you can shut out the Avalanche and guys like McKinnon and Makar. The Wild, sure. Obviously, the Sharks should be, I don't want to say easy one, but that's going to be an easy one against the Sharks. And of course, as I said, Vegas with the last game of the season. Just a quick note for the game. against the Avalanche. I don't know, for those of you that aren't aware, there's going to be a watch party at Greta, which is Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. It's arcade bar. They show a lot of Canucks games. I'm gonna be there. I'll be there, as this watch party is going to be sponsored by Canucks Army and the Sakaris and Price show. I'm going to be going there, so I'll be there. If you guys want any information on that, just go on to Canucks Army or nationgear.com. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to have tickets. I know the last watch party that I went to, you had to get a ticket, just a small donation, and then you're in. So I'm not sure if they're going to do that again. I haven't personally looked myself, but I will be there. Hopefully Matt Sakaris will be there. Jeff Patterson, Quads will be there. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and come out to the watch party. And if you happen to run into me, don't hesitate to say hi, as I'll be there, as I keep mentioning. I believe that's a home game, right? No, that's in Colorado. So it'll be a 6 o'clock start. I believe doors will open at, I'm assuming, 5 o'clock, maybe. But yeah, so just so you guys are informed about that. I know that's still, a couple weeks away, but, the sooner the better, as those tickets for that do tend to sell out. So just a heads up there. And yeah, so big win for the Canucks tonight. Obviously, as I keep mentioning, and what you're going to hear a lot, is the Canucks really, really needed this one. I know that they already got the 1 point for going to overtime, and then they managed to get that elusive second point they've come so close to getting in the last couple games that they were unable to get. They finally get it tonight, and now they're going to need to continue that momentum into Wednesday against the Islanders. Let me actually quickly look up, see how the Islanders are doing. Islanders. So the Islanders played today. They lost to Columbus. So, and then, so the Islanders have lost their last 2 games, both to Calgary and to Columbus. Both of them in overtime / a shootout. Let me see here. Actually, let me just pull it up on here. I'm just going to pull up, screw it, I'm just going to pull up the standings, and then that way you can get a better idea. All right, here we go. Islanders. Islanders are 5-2-3 in their last 10. So the Islanders have been pretty well the last 10 games. They've been playing pretty well. Obviously, the last 2 games, they've lost in overtime. So yeah, looking at the updated standings, apparently looking at the standings right now, Canucks are actually a point ahead of Calgary. They are 3 points, as I mentioned, behind St. Louis. They are 1 point ahead of Calgary. Utah has 75 points, so they are behind Calgary. And then Anaheim has 68. So yeah, that's I could have sworn that the Canucks were actually tied with Calgary, but apparently they have a point in hand on Calgary. Although Calgary has only played 69 games, Canucks are at 71 games right now. So Calgary does have a couple games in hand on the Canucks. But as of right now, Canucks are at 78 points. Calgary is at 77. So that is pretty good, considering, as we mentioned earlier, going into this game, the Canucks were 5 points behind St. Louis. They've shortened that to 3, and they're 1 point above Calgary. Sorry, I just need to take a sip. I'm not used to talking this much. But yeah, so those are the standings. The Wild are still have a grip on that first wildcard spot with 85. St. Louis, as I mentioned, 81 points. Let's look at the divisions, because I do remember at one point, people were saying Canucks could, if the Canucks went on a bit of a run, they could have caught up to LA. But right now, for the Pacific Division, Vegas are in first with 92 points. Kings are second with 87. Actually, Kings and the Oilers are I would say tied. They both have 87 points. So, and obviously lately, Kings have been on fire as of late. Kings are 8-1-1 in their last 10. The Oilers are 6-3-1. The Vegas is 6-2-2. So all three of the top teams in the division have been playing pretty hot lately. So I don't know. I think at one point people considered that St. Louis might be able to catch maybe even LA, or even Minnesota could catch LA. I mean, Minnesota's only 2 points behind LA, like technically, and out of that third spot in the division. Let's look over at the Central. Why not? You know what? I know I said we were going to do our standings update Wednesday. May as well just do them here now. Why not, right? So first place in the Central, obviously, is the Jets with 100 points. Second place in the Central is Dallas with 94. Third place in the Central is Colorado with 89. And then moving on to the East, the Atlantic. Panthers are first in the Atlantic with 89 points. Toronto second with 87. And then third is Tampa Bay with 85. The Metro Division, Washington is first with 102 points. Carolina second with 90. And then the Devils. We mentioned in a previous video that they were third in the division, although they are 11 points behind Carolina. So that's quite the distance between the two, with 81 points. Obviously, Washington's already gotten a playoff spot. They're already essentially in the playoffs with their 102 points. They are the top team in the league with 102. Obviously, the Jets are 2 points behind that. So as of right now, they're technically the top team in the league. They could potentially win the President's Trophy, which would be a big thing for the Capitals. Obviously, everyone's been paying attention to Ovechkin and his chase of Gretzky's record. But looking at the records, speaking of records, Washington is 9-1 in their last 10. They've won 4 straight. Carolina is also 9-1 in their last 10 games. Prior to this, they were, I believe it was, had won 8 straight before they lost. And then New Jersey is 4-5-1. in their last 10. So that's the Metro. Let's look back at the Atlantic. Florida is 6-4-0 in their last 10 games. Toronto is 4-5-1, and then Tampa Bay is 5-4-1. Let's look at the East wildcard teams for a little bit here. First wildcard spot is Ottawa with 79 points. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10. So Ottawa has kind of come on real strong in the last few weeks, in the last 10 games. Montreal with the second wildcard spot in the East with 75 points. They are 5-1-4 in their last 10. The Islanders are third with 74 points. They are 5-2-3, as we mentioned. And they are tied in points with the Rangers. Both of them have 74 points. Rangers are 3-5-2 in their last 10. And then Columbus is right there, right behind the Rangers with 73 points. So you don't really want to count out Columbus, especially with the Canucks playing them later this week. And then Columbus is 2-7-1 in their last 10. So maybe counting them out is a bit of a stretch. But Detroit is sixth in the wild card with 72 points. They are 3-7. Then you have the Boston Bruins are seventh in the wild card and have 69 points. And then the Bruins are 2-7-1 in their last 10. Like, I don't know if I have really any Boston Bruins fans in the live stream here, but man, Bruins suck. I haven't paid attention really to a whole lot of teams in the East, and at least until now. And so that's why I'm a little surprised that Boston is that bad. And they have 10 games left. So it's looking like Boston's not even going to make the playoffs at all. Pittsburgh with 69 points. Pittsburgh is 5-3-2 in their last 10. The Flyers, my wife is going to absolutely hate this. With 65 points. They are 1-8-1 in their last 10. So yeah, my wife is going to absolutely freaking hate that. She's a big Flyers fan. Yeah. Buffalo, 62 points. They are 4-6-0 in their last 10. Obviously, no one's expecting Buffalo to make the playoffs at all. And then, yeah, that's the East wild card. Obviously, we know both Chicago and San Jose have been eliminated with 51 points for Chicago and 47 for San Jose. Obviously, they've, as I mentioned, been eliminated. Nashville is right there too. Nashville only has 60 points, and Nashville is 5-4-1 in their last 10. Actually, looking at this, San Jose has a better record in the last 10 games than Boston, which is saying something. They have a better record than in the last 10 games than the Flyers too. But so that's interesting. Blackhawks are 2-6-2 in their last 10. Nashville, I already mentioned. Seattle, 4-5-1 in their last 10. Anaheim, 3-6-1. Utah is 5-3-2. Calgary is 5-2-3. Calgary has also won three straight, so that is a little, scary for, us as Canuck fans. So Calgary is still kind of staying in it. Obviously, Canucks are 5-4-1 in their last 10. St. Louis is 8-1-1. They've won 6 straight. Minnesota is 5-4-1 in their last 10. And yeah, I guess that does it for the standings there. But yeah, so I still think, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I still think it's going to come right down to the wire when it comes to determining at least the second wild card spot. It could very well come down to the last game of the season. You never know. I mean, this is going to be obviously a tough stretch for the Canucks. They need to start stringing some wins together. Tonight was good. Tonight was a good start. Getting that win, getting those 2 points for them was big. As I mentioned, they need to keep that momentum going into the game on Wednesday against the Islanders. Obviously, the Islanders have been doing, pretty well as of late, minus those, last 2 games. And obviously, tonight was, I would say, kind of lucky for the Canucks, considering, losing Pettersson, losing Höglander. And then they're going to have to run that same group out on Wednesday against Islanders. Now, I'm not saying you can compare the Devils and the Islanders. Obviously, the Devils are in the, third, have a division playoff spot. The Islanders do not. So obviously the Devils are slightly better. Although as of late, the Devils have been riddled with injuries. So their seasons kind of took a turn for the worst, despite where they are in the standings. They lost Jack Hughes, who's out for the season. They lost Dougie Hamilton, who's out for the season. So that's two of their top players in Hamilton and Jack. They've lost, so they've had to rely on, secondary scoring on top of, still having, Brad and, Timo Meyer and Luke Hughes, the youngest of the Hughes brothers. And I guess no one really talked about it tonight, but it was kind of like a mini Hughes Bowl. You were just missing one. So yeah, it was just Luke and Quinn. Sorry. So yeah, it was kind of mini Hughes Bowl for tonight. I don't think people were paying too much attention to that, considering, how desperate the Canucks needed this win. It wasn't really all fun and games for them in this one. It was straight to business. Like I mentioned earlier, Quinn Hughes, wow. I don't think there's enough good things that people can say about Quinn Hughes, because he's just amazing. The stuff that he can do, even at 70-80%. I mean, we haven't exactly seen him play over 30 minutes at 100%. At least I don't think we have. Let me know in the comment section down below if I'm incorrect on that. But from what I've seen, when he was 100%, he was averaging about 26, 27 minutes a night, but he wasn't going over 30 minutes when he was 100%. And now he's doing it when he's not 100%. So, you keep hearing it. Canucks are relying very heavily on Quinn Hughes, and it makes you wonder just how much Quinn can take. He's put this team on his back, and he's doing his best to try and carry it into the playoffs. But it makes you wonder, and it's actually made me wonder, as of late, if the Canucks do manage to, stumble, limp, whatever expression you want to use, into the playoffs, how is Quinn going to be in the playoffs after having done all that, just to get the team into the playoffs? Is it going to be too much come playoff time? Is he going to be all burnt out, even in worse shape or in worse condition come playoff time? And could it lead to a quick first-round exit for the Canucks? Obviously, we mentioned earlier the whole Pettersson, Höglander, Hedl injuries. We don't know if they could be ready for the playoffs. Keep in mind, there's 10 10, 11 games left in the season, and we don't know how long or how serious the injuries to Pedersen and at least Höglander, we don't know how serious those are. Obviously, we know how serious the Hedl injury is, as we haven't had any updates on Hedl at all. And it's been, over a week now since Hedl got hurt, maybe almost 2. And, he didn't travel with the team on this road trip. So that instantly rules him out of the road trip. Could we maybe see Hedl come back, in time for the game against, Colorado or something? Like, at that point, there's only a handful of games left. So, but again, we haven't really gotten any updates on Hedl's condition and whether or not he's still in protocol or not. Obviously, it's a very, sensitive thing due to his concussion history. And they're probably just not wanting to push him. They want to make sure he's 100% and he's good. As everyone knows, they said when that trade happened, like, he's one concussion away from his career being over, at least one, really bad concussion away. We don't really know the severity. Obviously, with him having missed almost about a week, it seems to be pretty serious. We've also heard Rick Tocchet in the past say, I don't think it's serious. And then the injury ends up actually being serious. As perfect example of that, Demko. When Demko left that game against Toronto on February 8th, it is now March 24th, and he finally returned tonight. Shortly after that game, Rick Tocchet basically said, I think it's something minor. I don't think it's too serious. Demko ended up missing 6 weeks. You call that not serious? Like, are they like misdiagnosing these injuries, or is it just Rick Tocchet just not wanting to divulge details of an injury and just trying to, shrug it off, as like it's nothing? Like, how do you explain that? Rick Tocchet goes out there and says, the Demko's injury isn't, I don't think, think it's serious. And then the player ends up missing freaking 6 weeks. And then you don't say what the injury is until week 4, week 5, where it turns out it's a groin injury, a previous injury that Demko has had, in the past that cost him 3 months of the season. And now this one has cost him 6 weeks. And now because of that, you've relied heavily on Kevin Lankinen. And I know he's unwell. It was revealed that he was unwell in the game against the Rangers, which explained a lot, on his play. He wasn't even the backup tonight. It was Seeloff's. He wasn't dressed tonight, but you really need to, give Lankinen a rest, as he, much like Quinn Hughes, has put this team on his back. Obviously, if you're thinking MVPs for this Canucks team this season, one is Quinn Hughes, obviously, and then the other I would say is, Kevin Lankinen. If it wasn't for Kevin Lankinen, Canucks may not be in the spot they're in now. They could be 10 games out of the playoffs if it wasn't for the play of Kevin Lankinen. Sorry. But I do think, after tonight, I haven't heard Rick Tocchet's post-game comments yet. I'll probably, look at that a little bit later. But I'm thinking Demko might start again on Wednesday. He played pretty well. Tonight he looked good. He actually played the entire game, unlike the game against Toronto. So, and like we mentioned with that save that he made on Cotter, he did the full splits. And like we mentioned, this is a guy coming off a groin injury, and you're doing that already? Like, wow. So I do think Canucks have to go to Demko again on Wednesday. Let Kevin Lankinen get some well-needed rest. Maybe save Lankinen for the game against, Columbus. No, I don't know. They've really run Lankinen, obviously, the last few weeks. What was he played, like, 10 out of his last 11 or 11 out of his last 12 or something like that? So you need to give Lankinen a rest and, have Demko play on Wednesday, and then maybe give Lankinen Columbus, and then you definitely need to have Demko start against the Jets. Or, maybe have Kevin Lankinen start that one, considering the last time he played them. But you definitely have to go with Demko. You need to, it's like what Rick Tocchet said a while back. Once Demko returns, you need to start getting him on a roll into a rhythm. And I think the Canucks should do that. Have Demko play Wednesday, give Lankinen Columbus, and then have Demko play against Jets, because we keep saying game against Winnipeg is going to be big, as that one in particular, that game could potentially make or break their playoff hopes. Obviously, they need to win on Wednesday. If they're able to win on Wednesday and Thursday, I think they'd be in a good spot going into the game against the Jets to end their road trip. We mentioned in a previous video, they need to at least get 3 wins on this road trip. They got 1. They need 2 more. So if they can get the win on Wednesday and then beat Columbus, they could be in a good spot come the game against the Jets. And if they win, that game won't be, they won't need to win that one. They can let that one slide. But in order for that to make sense to happen, they need to win against the Islanders and the Blue Jackets. If they lose one of those, they're going to have to win that game against the Jets. And it's just that simple. But yeah, so that's our game recap. Nice to see some people here in the live stream. We're definitely gonna do this again on Wednesday. Hopefully we can get more of a turnout. Hopefully we can maybe get more people in the chat. I'm also hopefully going to be a little bit more prepared. This time I kind of had to do this last minute. I wasn't able to get it live streamed to Instagram. I was having issues with that for some reason. I'm going to hopefully before Wednesday try and get that sorted and figured out. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream. This was a lot of talking for me that, like I said, I'm not used to that. But at the end of the day, Canucks end up winning. So that puts me in a good mood. Hopefully that puts all us Canuck fans in a good mood and has us looking forward to the game on Wednesday. And, yeah, and just how that was, especially after unlucky that game, especially that game against the Rangers on Saturday morning. That was a tough pill to swallow for Canuck fans, for sure. And also it was odd that game being so early, as that left the rest of the day and the night, and Normally we're watching games at like 4:30 or 7. No, we're not used to those 10 a.m. matinee starts. So I literally had nothing really to do for the rest of the day. So it was odd. But that's going to do it for the live stream. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.